Hello, everybody, and welcome into the 57th edition of Texas Longhorns Live. We really appreciate you guys being here. Every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time is where you can find Gerald and myself. Now, let's jump into this first one. I think this is kind of a fun off-season topic, and I think it's a very interesting question because this could be the case. Will Texas be the most watched college football team next year? So I'll give you guys some data here. In 2023, Texas only appeared in one of the top 10 games watched, which was kind of surprising to me. It was the Washington and Texas game. That was the only appearance Texas had. 2024, we had it versus Arizona State and Ohio State. You go all the way down to 11, just outside the top 10. You have Georgia and Texas, and also Georgia and Texas twice. So 4 times in the top 11 is pretty good. Definitely an improvement. And I think that's because of better competition in the SEC, also going into deeper in the playoffs, I guess, because of the 12th team. Overall, this kind of surprised me. 23, we were the 6th most watched team in general. Ohio State, Alabama, Michigan, Colorado. That one surprised me a little bit. Georgia, number 5, Texas, 6. Last year, Texas was number 4, Ohio State, Bama, and Georgia. So, Gerald, do you think Texas can make up that gap? And just real quick, Texas's gap to make up, Georgia, on average, 5.97 million people watched last year. Texas, on average, 4.63 million. So, about 1.5 million difference right there.
That is a pretty wide gap. And that's no shade at, Texas. Obviously, we're a Texas channel. I'm a Texas fan. But that's such a wide gap. It's hard to see Texas fully making that up. I think early in the season, I think there'll be a lot of eyes on Texas. Arch Manning is going to attract a lot of the sidewalk fans because of the name, because of the fanfare, because of all the things, right? And if that first game goes well for him, then I think those sidewalk fans will continue to watch. I also think there's going to be some hate watching happening from people for Texas, right? People that want to see Texas fail, people that want to see Arch Manning fail. And so I think there is going to be an increase. I don't know if they can, again, that 1.2 million people is a ton of eyeballs. And so I don't know necessarily if Texas can make that full jump, but I do see an increase on the viewership for Texas coming up simply because of, again, a good playoff run, a team that's getting a lot of national championship hype already. And then obviously you layer on top of that the Arch Manning of it all. And I see them having an increase. I don't know if they can make up the full gap, but I do see them kind of closing that gap for sure.
Yeah, I do think the gap will be pretty. I think Texas will jump into this top 3 for sure.
Okay.
The top 3, Georgia 5.97 million, Bama 5.44. So there's half a million right there drop, which is kind of surprising to me. Then Ohio State, like 300,000 drop there to 5.16. I think Texas will average 5 million viewers this year. I'm pretty confident saying that because of that, the Arch Manning effect. 2 years ago, guys, Colorado was getting 4.6 million people to watch their games. They basically 2 years ago were getting the same as what Texas got last year. Think about that. Colorado was doing that. And that was because of the Deion effect, man. Yeah, Deion effect and Shedeur Sanders effect. But then that fell off. They went back down 1.5 million just in 1 year. So, for 1 year, you see a 1.5 million drop off. I think Texas probably could gain anywhere from 500,000 to 1.5 million, maybe even 2 million if the Arch Manning effect is in full effect. It's going to be interesting because, like you said, early in the season, I think it is going to be a thing. But if Texas doesn't perform to standards and Arch Manning doesn't perform to standards, I don't think you're going to see that. That's why Colorado kind of fell off, because everyone was excited to watch them. Oh, they're going to do big things, do well. And they got less views when they were better than when they were worse because it was the first year. So if Arch Manning can capitalize and Texas is really good next year, we're talking 10-2, 11-1, 12-0, then I think Texas could be number 1 or number 2 most watched next year.
Yeah, and they're going to have a lot of televised games, and I think they'll have a lot of primetime games. I think having that post-Thanksgiving Black Friday spot to themselves will do a lot. There's not a ton on, so you'll get, again, more sidewalk fans in. It's a big rivalry game. ESPN will make a big deal out of it. So they're going to have a lot of opportunities to attract a lot of eyes. And so they're, again, I'm not saying anything shade other than it's just such a wide stinking gap. It's hard for me to see them making that jump fully. That being said, I wouldn't be shocked if it did happen because they're going to have more televised games. They're starting it off with the marquee game of the week. They're going to have multiple games. Texas going to the Swamp is going to be a big thing, right? Texas going to Georgia after what happened last year is going to be a big thing. Again, obviously Texas A&M, Texas and OU. So there's a lot of games that will draw a lot of eyes. And so, especially if some of those games are night or primetime games, there will be a big jump. It's just, again, that's such a wide gap for Texas to have to draw.
Yeah, I think another thing, obviously, that would help. This is common sense. The most to watch games the last 2 years have been the national championship games. If Texas makes the national championship, that's going to help a lot in this conversation. And it's also weird. I think this is actually more of a possibility. So Michigan in 2023 were a part of the 3 highest televised games the whole year, but they were number 3 in viewership, which means total each game wasn't as high as Ohio State and Alabama's. I think Texas could be that. I think Texas could have 3 or 4 of the highest rated games like Ohio State, Florida, Texas A&M, SEC championship game, Georgia. But then I could see people not watching San Jose State, for example, Sam Houston. I don't think that's going to be as high, so the average could drop. So I could see them having, 3 of the top 5 highest watched games, but their average be down in the 3 to 4 range.
That I could definitely see that happening. And again, because I think that San Jose State and that Sam Houston game will probably be an ESPN Plus kind of situation. So get your trials or your logins ready for that. You got Texas Vandy is going to not draw. It was a fun game last year, but it wasn't really that big of a draw, right? You've got some of those in there. Texas Arkansas is a thing for us, but not really nationally, especially with where Arkansas is right now. So you have to balance that thing out.
No, I completely agree. And I think, honestly, if Georgia and Texas are both, going full force and they're undefeated or one of them has 1 loss or they both have 1 loss, that could be the highest viewed game of the whole season in college football. Like in Athens, Arch Manning, it's probably going to be a night game where the Ohio State game isn't. I think that honestly has a good chance to end up number 1 in the regular season rankings. And I think the SEC championship game last year was actually number 1 prior to the playoffs. So it's definitely it's a rematch as well. So there's so many factors where I think that ends up being the most highly rated game of the regular season.
A lot of storylines for sure.
Let us know what you guys think. Do you guys think that Texas has a shot at that, or do they have more of a shot of being in the top 3 or 4 regular season games, or you don't think they have a shot at all? They're just going to be the same. I definitely think they're going to get a viewership bump. Dan the Diesel Freak says, how are you guys feeling about Ohio State versus Texas and Columbus? I feel good about it. I think Gerald feels good as well. Not as good as I do because I have money on it. I've been loud about it. I think Texas is going to win that game. What about you, Gerald?
Yeah, it is. I feel good about it. I think I'd feel better about it if it was like week 4 and not week 1, because I think especially along the offensive line with the young quarterback. But I said it last week with our kind of co-show with Garrison and those folks over at the Ohio State channel. I think Texas wall to wall, like when you look at returning production and returning players, I think Texas probably has the edge there. But Ohio State has what I am dubbing the 2 like blue shell players of the nation, right? And Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith, right? Those 2 guys are guys that one play can change the whole perspective of the game. So like we saw it last year in the playoffs, right? Caleb Downs changed the entire complexion of that game through one play. So like those guys give me some anxiety, and maybe it's just PTSD from the playoffs and Caleb Downs ruining my afternoon. But that's the thing that worries me, is that they have those big play guys. Texas won't be able to put the lid on them as well as we saw last year in the playoffs. And you saw that against Georgia as well, where Texas was able to kind of put a lid on some of those receivers with the safety. So again, I feel good. I don't feel as good as Matthew, but I don't know if anybody feels as good as Matthew outside of the locker room, maybe. But I think Texas is in a good position. It'll be a fun game. And again, I think it's going to come down to a defensive struggle is really where it's going to be in my mind.
No, I think we both definitely agree on that. Lower scoring game. And, they have 2 of the top 5 guys in college football at the worst. I think Texas has 3 of the top 20. I think Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons, and I think Arch Manning's going to work his way into that when the season comes along. So, 5 of the top 20 players in college football on the field at the same time, there's a lot of talent.
That ain't bad.
Okay, let's move on to this. So we talked about Ohio State. Let's talk about our next opponent, San Jose State. They went 7-6 in the Mountain West, or out of the Mountain West last year. They went 3-4 in the Mountain West. Ken, I'm going to butcher this last name. Niumatalolo, maybe I didn't. Navy won 192 games in 16 years. He was there for the longest time, guys. Like, I remember him on the sidelines my whole life at Navy, so it's kind of weird to see him on San Jose State now. But overall, like a solid football team coming into Texas. They do lose Nick Nash, who was all-world everything, up for the Biletnikoff last year, could have won the Biletnikoff. At, I believe, like 16 touchdowns, 1,300 yards receiving, basically 14. He had 1,392 yards. Guy's a stud. Gerald, what do you think about this team coming into Austin?
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup because I love that Ken Niumatalolo is really like trying to shed the I'm the Navy guy. Like he doesn't run the triple option. It's a very wide open offense. They're going to throw the ball down the field. I don't think they know who their quarterback is yet. Like that's the question I have, right? They have both of the guys that got significant snaps returning last year. They also took a quarterback in the spring portal. So that tells me they don't really feel that good. This kid that transferred in from, I think it's from UCLA, like was an early enrollee at UCLA and then transferred after the spring to San Jose State. It's just such a weird situation. Like I don't love that for them at the quarterback spot. They do have potentially one of my favorite players in college football, though. They're running back, and I'm trying to make sure I get his name right.
Floyd Chalk.
Floyd Chalk, right? Floyd Chalk the fourth. Don't forget the fourth. 5'7", 192. The guys are like a bowling ball running down the field. I love watching his play. So like he's going to be an interesting, it might be like a little bit of a test for Texas's like open field tackling abilities. If he can do that, like that's a dude that you're going to have to freaking take down like a man. So I'm curious to see. I don't feel like it's going to be much just from top to bottom. You know, Texas out talents them position to position. But I think they're going to do some things that may stretch Texas a little bit, especially on a letdown spot coming off of Ohio State. They're going to spread the ball around, but also, you know, Ken Niumatalolo, as much as he is trying to like shed that I'm the triple option guy from Navy, he's got a 5'7", 200-pound running back. So you can control the game and hopefully beat on some tired legs and create some offense for yourself.
Yeah, so they're a weird team because they were 130th in run game last year. They were basically dead last in college football at running the football, which is weird because, like you said, the head coach wants to be able to run the football. His whole life, they're running the triple option at Navy. So are they going to be able to take that jump to become, I don't know, average? Can they be an average running team? Because that's all they did last year was throw the football. And they honestly, other than Nick Nash, weren't great at it. They lost their two best wide receivers, Nick Nash. They lost another guy that transferred in from Nevada last year, put up 900 yards. So you bring in 3 transfer wide receivers from, no offense, bottom tier type programs. I believe one of them's from Purdue. I think another one's from New Mexico State. They're not great players coming in. And then your 2 other leading wide receivers are Matthew Coleman and Trayshawn Hurry at 401 yards and 481 yards. So you're not really bringing much back offensively. Like the quarterback position, Walker Eggett was their starter for most of the season last year. Their other guy that had some playing time transferred to Coastal Carolina, and this guy only has 57.3% completion percentage, 13 touchdowns, 10 receptions. So if you're a bad running football team and your starting quarterback only had 13 touchdowns, 10 receptions, that probably doesn't bode very well for you coming in Austin and putting up more than, I don't know, maybe 2 touchdowns. That's just me.
Yeah, it's not great. And then, you know, they weren't great defensively either in a lot of spots. I mean, they gave up like 54 points to John Mateer at Washington State. Well, again, Washington State, John Mateer might be a good quarterback. I'm heavy on the might right there, right? But a lot of folks like him. Nevada, Colorado State, Oregon State, Boise State all put up like 400 plus yards on that defense. It's just, again, first year under a new coach. So they're still trying to figure some things out. They should hopefully get better. I like Ken Niumatalolo. I think he's a good dude. And I think I want to be successful. And so I think this probably won't be the week for them. They were like that. They were just such a hard team to figure out. Like they went to 5 overtimes in that bowl game with USF. They gave up less than 300 yards in that game and still lost in overtime. It's just such a hard team to figure out. I don't understand it.
Yeah, and like you said, defensively, they weren't great. They do bring back their leading tackler, Jordan Pollard, who's probably their best player. He had 115 total tackles last year. But then the 2 guys that you stand out also defensively are gone. One defensive lineman, Sone Toya, he's gone. He went to the NFL. And then Robert Rahimi is like a legitimately good football player, led their second in team in tackles, led their team in interceptions, and he transferred to SMU. So obviously a pretty good football player playing for the ACC champion, but you lose him. So I don't know what to expect from this football team. I just don't know what to expect. And let's be honest here. Did I think they had a good chance of winning this game, even if you bring every one of those guys back, including Nick Nash? No. But will they be able to score, I don't know, 10 points? When the over-under comes out here, it's going to be very interesting what this is. My guess is it's probably going to be Texas like minus 31, something like that. It's going to be somewhere in between 28 and 31 is my guess.
I think it's going to look a lot like that Colorado State line from a year ago. It's very lopsided, very, very Texas heavy.
No, I agree. And yeah, and I don't see this team doing what happened a couple years ago where you go on the road, you beat Alabama, and then you come home and you're tied with Wyoming in the fourth quarter. That Wyoming team, the running back, Harrison Whaley, that dude's a stud. I don't think Floyd Chalk is that good. And then they also kind of threw a wrinkle in the game plan. They said the whole week this quarterback was going to play, and they put in their backup quarterback to play most of the game, and he was a running guy, and they basically just ran screens and ran the quarterback the whole game, and they were just able to eat up clock and keep the game close. But then you see Texas have that speech on the sideline and blow them out in the fourth quarter, game's over. I don't think San Jose State's going to be able to do that. And I also think Texas is in a better place from a leadership and a mentality standpoint. So I think Texas wins this game. Let's give early predictions as well, Gerald. What do you think the score is going to end up being?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot to a little for sure. I'm looking like probably, a 42-14 situation. I think Texas probably gets a heavy dose of garbage time in this one. And maybe Texas's backups do well as well, but I think it'll be probably like 42 or 45 to like 14. You give up a couple of touchdowns late on some backups.
No, that's fair. I'm going to go 41-6. So we're basically in the same ballpark. 39 points. You got it to 27 points. So overall, I think Texas wins this game by 4+ scores. I think we both agree with that. And, after Ohio State, we kind of get breathers. We get Sam Houston State, San Jose State. There's another one in there too. What's the other team that we play that's not very good? I forget, but it's not a good football team. So 3 easy ones in a row. And then I believe the next game we go is the Swamp. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to have to knock the rust off a little bit even after that.
Yeah. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps out what we're trying to build here at the Voice of College Football. Also, guys, if you feel like sponsoring a show here at the Voice of College Football, it does not have to be our show. It can be any show on the network. We have a sponsor right here from the Michigan channel. They really like what we bring to them, and they have been a great sponsor for the Voice of College Football. That is the Win Agency. If you guys want to get your personal brand, business, or anything to the next level, find us at sponsorships@vocfb.com today. We really appreciate you guys doing that. Does not cost anything. If you know anyone that wants to do it, just reach out, ask them if they want to do it. And if they do, get in contact there. We really appreciate you guys doing that. Also, use the Amazon link in the description. They're already advertising for Prime Day, I believe, in like 3 weeks now. So put a little bit of change in a Mark Rogers pocket. It does not cost anything, literally nothing. All it does is put a little bit of change into his pocket, helps out a growing small business, and we really appreciate when you guys do that as well. And by the way, speaking of Mark Rogers, here he is.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link, and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.
There you go, guys. Thank you for sticking around for that. Now, let's talk about this because Texas is absolutely killing it recruiting-wise, guys. We land Vodney Cleveland. Then we land Richard Wesley, the 5-star out of California, which has been comped to Kayvon Thibodeau out of California as the best edge since then. So really, really big get for Texas recruiting-wise. Outstanding and definitely a surprise. Everyone was surprised by that commitment. I dropped the video breaking that news yesterday right here on the channel, so please go check this out. I'll run through some of these recruits, and then we'll talk about how you think their Texas is doing overall, Gerald, recruiting-wise. So Caden Finley visited. Caden Prothro, the tight end, visited. Kiwi Brown, tight end, visited. John Turntine visited. Kendall Gerville, who has been, heavily favored to Texas from Florida, defensive lineman, would be a hell of a get. James Johnson, also defensive lineman, visiting Texas. Trenton Henderson, visiting Texas. Stud, right up there with Richard Wesley, defensive end. Tyler Atkinson, the number 1 linebacker in the country, visited Texas. Kosi Akapala, visited Texas, linebacker. Calvin Thomas, also linebacker, visited Texas. Chase Calicut, visited Texas. And defensive back, kind of does it all. Paris Melvin Jr. visited Texas. I only went with guys that have not committed to the University of Texas. We had about 6 or 7 guys that are committed that visited as well, but these are the uncommitted kids visiting Texas. What do you think about how Texas is handling recruiting, Gerald?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say that they're doing it the wrong way or they're not having success. We've said it before on this channel. Like, I am already pretty convinced that this 2026 class is going to look a lot like the 2022 class, where you have a ton of focus on the trenches. And you see, like, Kenny Baker's trying to have it all done before July, and I respect it, right? That guy has a bunch of incredible talent. And I feel like a lot of Texas fans owe him an apology, because everyone's like, who is Kenny Baker? And like, he came in and is just absolutely killing it this cycle. So landing a ton of priority targets there. Texas, I think we're almost at half of the number of committed players are in the trenches, whether offensive or defensive line. And that, to me, is how you win the SEC, regardless of anything else, regardless of all of the vaunted offense and the skill players. Again, I point back to the difference between Texas playing Arkansas when they were in the Big 12 and Texas coming in this last year and being able to compete in the SEC. Texas got a lot heavier in the trenches, got a lot better in the trenches, and they're really focused on that. I don't have any sources. I just kind of follow the message boards like everybody else, but it seems like Texas has done a lot to make itself available and put itself in really good position for those 2 like priority tackles in the state, John Turntine and Felix Ojo, who visited last week. And I know he wasn't on the list, but you can't really talk about that without talking about the totality of it. And so I think you land both of those guys would be great. You even split those guys, and I think you're doing okay. Texas is doing really, really well. I said it on social media. I need Caden Finley to like quit all this mess and just finally commit. Like, we know you're going, dude. Like, and I love that his dad is letting him like enjoy the experience and go on all his visits. But like, just come on home, kid. Just come on, put the burnt orange on, and you know where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I agree. I do think he ends up with Texas. He does have the commitment date of July 4th. So if it is during that time, the video will be dropped. These kids love to do July 4th now because there's like 3 or 4 guys on here. We'll read them off to you in a little bit about when they're deciding to commit, and a lot of them are on July 4th. But I agree. I think Caden Finley does end up at Texas. It sucks because it sounds like Jalen Lott isn't going to end up at Texas. I don't know where he's going to end up. That's kind of faded off a little bit, which does suck for the legacy, because obviously James Lott played here, but it is what it is. He doesn't want to choose Texas most likely. But there's some guys trending, and there's some high-level guys trending. I mean, you land Richard Wesley, who, again, jumped in the pool with Dan Lanning and then decided to make a real splash landing at Texas. So, overall, really exciting times to land him, unexpected. And then you have someone like Trenton Henderson, who really wasn't on Texas's board like 2.5 months ago. And then all of a sudden, it's starting to gain steam, and he's down to 3 guys. It's Florida, Texas, and I believe LSU. So, Texas is in this thing, and Texas can easily win this thing. We've actually, ever since Sark's been here, we've kind of beaten Florida and LSU when we've gone head-to-head with them. So I feel pretty good with that recruitment. Tyler Atkinson, some weird things have been going on with him. Some very weird things. He trains with Derek Johnson. That's kind of odd, especially when you're down in Texas. There's the Pivot Players Podcast, or Players Pivot Podcast, the one with Ryan Clark, where I guess Fanatic Perspective, most Texas fans know him. If you don't, follow him on X, Twitter. He put a clip up of Tyler Atkinson being like, yeah, Texas is really close to winning a natty randomly when someone whispered something in his ear. So it's like, there's a lot of weird things. I think Texas is in a good position for him. And a month and a half ago, I wouldn't have said that because he didn't even have a visit scheduled, guys. I really thought Clemson was in the running there, or Georgia. I think Texas might be his number 1 now. So very, very fun times. And we'll see who we land. I'm pretty confident some of these guys, like John Turntine and Felix Ojo, I do think they end up at Texas. I think Texas could also possibly add Malachi Lee. That's another one that commits this Friday, which would be very awesome. I mean, you land those 3 guys, we're talking about a class that's probably as good, if not better, than the 2022 class. Easy to say. But overall, I'll ask you this question, Gerald. If you had to choose, you could guarantee yourself a recruit to commit to Texas, and it cannot be Felix Ojo because we know how we both feel about him. Who do you want?
Yeah, I think Tyler Atkinson is probably the one. I think, and he kind of comes in as a ready-made Anthony Hill replacement. Like, it's hard to replace a guy like Anthony Hill unless you have a kid like Tyler Atkinson in the wings. And so him being able to come in, be a day one difference maker, and I think he'll get to be a lot of what Anthony Hill was his freshman year, where Leonga Leifau will probably be back and be kind of the more seasoned guy, the guy who's holding down the more larger responsibilities, where Atkinson can come in and just be a scud missile and come in and make plays. And so of those dudes, I think probably Atkinson is the one that jumps out to me the most, just because, and I'll be honest, the state of Texas doesn't put out a ton of elite linebackers. So having to go somewhere else and pick a kid like him, when you can land them, you have to land them.
No, I agree. Since you went with him, I'm going to go with Trenton Henderson. This guy is 6'5", 265, 270 pounds. He's kind of the difference, or he's kind of the same as Richard Wesley. I mean, you have two gigantic human beings coming off the edge, and it's kind of weird because Texas hasn't had that kind of mold. Like, Colin Simmons is a little smaller than both those guys. Weight wise, he's a lot smaller. And then Smith Orogbo, again, kind of a bendy guy. These guys are just big, dominant, physical football players that look like, hey, if this guy walked past you and I said, hey, this dude's in the NFL, you'd be like, oh, he is? I'm not surprised. He's huge. Because Richard Wesley is 17 years old and he's 6'5", 265 pounds. Trenton Henderson is 18 years old and he's 6'4", 265 pounds. So they're freaks of nature. And if you can have those type of guys in the trenches in the SEC, yes, sign me up.
Yeah, Chase Calicut's one that's trending away from Texas, I think, at this time, but he's another one that I'd love to have. Texas has done really well recruiting safeties, but being able to keep that North Shore Houston pipeline going and an elite player like that would be nice. Texas has a bit of a luxury at safety because they recruited so well the last couple of cycles. But he's another one that I think if we're looking at guys from this group, and especially from this past weekend visit cycle, be nice to have.
No, 100%. So I'm going to name some of these guys. Commitment dates: Caden Finley, as mentioned before. The 4th, Kendall Gerville, who I think does end up at Texas. The 2nd, Bryce Perry Wright, who really good football player. I just don't think he ends up at Texas at this point. July 4th. Felix Ojo said, this isn't a commitment date, but was news, is going to come down to Texas versus Ohio State. Malachi Lee is the 27th, Friday. Chase Calicut is also the 27th, Friday. John Turntine is July 4th. Xavier Crowell, I don't think we land him, but he's the 26th. Xavier Griffin, who Griffin, we did not talk about. I think he's could end up at Texas as well as the 29th. Yeah. I think that comes down to Alabama and Texas. And then Jalen Lott, again, I think he's trending away, is July 8th. So I named 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys, Gerald. How many of those does Texas land?
5 feels about like the right number. I don't know, maybe 4 or 5. I probably put myself out there too much. I think, of that grouping of guys that you have named, I can probably count 5 of them off the top of my head that I think are at least trending Texas at 7:30 p.m. on June 23rd. So that number feels right to me. And I think, and this is why I was like trying to be cautious last week. Texas lost on some big recruitments last week. It was just like, this time next week, you're going to feel fine. So chill. But I really do think Texas probably lands 4 or 5 of those guys.
No, I agree. I was going to say 4. So we are lockstep there. Like, I think Caden Finley ends up in the class. I think Malachi Lee, I think, honestly ends up in the class. I do. I think Texas is trending heavily there. I think Turntine ends up in the class. And then I think Xavier Griffin ends up in the class. So that's 4 guys out of the 9. And they're all really good football. Oh, Kendall Gerville. So actually, I do think 5 because I think he's actually the biggest lock of the group. So yeah, I guess
I was right.
So you were right. But if it's 4, then I was right. Okay, that's how this works. We clip off the 5 of what I just said and just say 4.
Yeah. We'll have to discuss it in 3 weeks for our show in 3 weeks. Who was right? Somebody clip that.
So last thing, our friend over at the Ohio State channel. Harrison posted a question to Gerald and myself. Texas fans, would you rather have the win at Ohio State or would you rather have Felix Ojo? Gerald, I will let you hit that first. What would you rather have?
Yeah, it's weird saying it like it's a 12-team playoff year. It's a it's a non-conference game, so it doesn't really impact the conference race in any way. So like I would probably take that take the Felix Ojo over the win. And I'm somebody who likes to win. I love winning. I love watching Texas win, obviously. But when you think about the Longhorns' goals, both next year and long term, Felix Ojo over the win there, I think is the right decision.
No, I agree, because you just stated it's a 12-team playoff. You can lose that game at Ohio State and still make the playoff. If this is 4-team, you kind of have to run the table, which it's a hard schedule. You have Georgia, you have Florida, you have Texas A&M, you have Oklahoma. Those are 4 losable games to Texas, in my opinion. Do I think Texas loses all 4? Absolutely not. I don't even think they go 2-2 in those games. But still, in a 14 playoff, you kind of have to be perfect. 12-team, you don't. You could lose 2 games with this schedule and still make the playoff, and you get to land Felix Ojo. So there's no doubt about it to me. I think this guy is a bona fide Kelvin Banks type player, where he steps on and he plays right away. And also, guys, which is crazier, Kelvin Banks was the 9th pick in the draft. Felix Ojo is a better overall like athlete than Kelvin Banks. He has much better upside than Kelvin Banks, in my opinion. He's much bigger, has more length. So I think this is no doubt about it. You take the loss at Ohio State for Felix Ojo.
Yeah, and again, this is not meant to be like a non-competitive thing. It is a long-term decision-making thing for me. I think Ojo is a long-term investment. I think Ojo is somebody who gets Texas to and closer to the national championship goal long-term, and they could still win it with a loss to Ohio State. Now, if it was like playoffs or Ojo, then we have a different conversation.
Yeah, I think the question should have been asked, do we trade the win last year versus Ohio State for Felix Ojo this year? What about that one?
That
doesn't guarantee you the national championship.
It doesn't at all. That's a tough one. And I don't know. I think Texas probably would win that matchup, but it's hard. Again, it's revisionist history. It's impossible to know. Oh man. I still think I take Ojo, but it's real. Like, I'm so close to saying taking the win. Like I'm lucky enough to have watched Texas play for 2 national championships in my lifetime, and I've been chasing that dragon ever since. And so, I think they could have won the national championship game. Honestly, I thought that Ohio State Texas game was kind of a de facto national championship in a lot of ways. I want to say Ojo, because I'm trying to be all progressive and crap, but there's a big chunk of me that's like, maybe the win last year.
Yeah, I would rather take the win because I think we beat Notre Dame. I think Texas and Ohio State were the 2 best teams last year. So I think now I will say this. That doesn't mean we would have won the game. Should we have won the game because I think we were a better team? Absolutely. But we've seen under Sark, we should have beat Washington. Let's be honest here. And we didn't. So we could definitely lose to Notre Dame because I think that Notre Dame team had some things on defense that would have given us issues, especially off the edges and on their defensive line in particular. So, but I would trade it. I would trade the win versus Ohio State for Felix Ojo. That's a hard question. I think that's a better question, honestly.
Yeah, it's tough. It's real tough. Oh man, I'm going to think about that all night. Like you've given me something to process.
You're not going to be able to go to sleep. You're going to be on the whiteboard going,
brother. We're going to try to invent time travel and see what happens. It's going to be great. Don't throw the toss. Don't do the toss.
Yeah, that would be awesome. We can try with the time machine. You can do both. You can get Felix Ojo in one timeline. You can not get him in the other and beat Ohio State and see what happens. All we need is a time machine.
You change one thing and it changes the whole trajectory of the world. So I don't know. Maybe that'd be a good thing depending on how you feel about where we're at right now.
Yeah, that's true. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. This has been the 57th edition of Texas Longhorns Live. We really appreciate you guys being here. We are here every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, breaking it down for you. Also, you can follow me right there on Twitter, on X, whatever you want to call it. Right there is my handle. You can also follow Gerald right there on Twitter, X, or Blue Sky. Right there is his handle, and his Longhorn Pod, which you can find on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever you listen to your Spotify or your podcasts. I listen to Spotify clearly because I want to say Spotify podcast, but wherever you can find it, you can listen to it. Same with the Voice of College Football. You find us on there, you can listen to it. Whatever team, Iowa, Texas, Ohio State, USC, Mississippi State just dropped a show, so you can find us there as well with that. So please hit that like button, please subscribe, and as always, hook 'em.
Hook 'em.